What is a complete human? Is it a cover model? Is it a science geek? Is it a fitness expert? Or all of the above and more? Jana and Evan are crusaders that walk the earth looking at today's issues that touch our hearts and minds. The honest and hopeful outlook on the advancement of today's society. The science behind the decay of human relationships. The necessary preparations for future generations. Join us as we look deep inside ourselves and embark on a journey into becoming a complete human.
Hey guys, Deborah Rozman here again. Most of you have heard me speak on the benefits of beets. Beets are well known as a powerful superfood and help the body create nitric oxide, the miracle molecule that supports a healthy cardiovascular system and sexual function. As an athlete, the nitric oxide boosting benefits help me power through workouts better than any artificial pre-workout I've ever taken. Now, this is why we created Complete Human Resbeet. You get all of the benefits of organic beets with additional anti-aging support from fermented resveratrol. Resveratrol is a longevity gene activator and is something I have turned to for years to help support anti-aging and optimal health. If you're not a fan of the taste of beets, we've got you covered with our all-natural and delicious dark cherry flavor. I take Resbeet twice a day, and I have to say, I feel incredible. Head on over to store.completehuman.com and enter the code podcast at checkout to get 20% off.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of the Complete Human Podcast with your host,
Deborah Rozman
and Evan DeMarco. So we have talked a lot in the past about the gut-brain connection, but it turns out there might be a heart-brain connection that we haven't really known about.
I know, very interesting.
Very interesting. So when we first started hearing about this, or when we first kind of got introduced to our guest, which I'll introduce in a second, the first thing that I thought about was you can die of a broken heart. And it makes sense. Like there's so much that happens in the heart, but we're just really kind of unaware of how that impacts the rest of our body. And so our next guest has really kind of committed a lot of her work to understanding that. And we're so stoked to talk about this. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Deborah Rozman from the HeartMath Institute.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you and nice to be here. And I love educating people about the heart because most people don't know what it really does.
So let's jump into that, right? I mean, I think by and large, people perceive the heart as this organ that just pumps blood throughout your body. But you guys have really devoted decades worth of time to researching how the heart impacts the rest of your body. And I'd love for you to just kind of, actually, you know what? I'm going to take a step back because we need to know who you are before you jump into telling us all about this magnificent organ in our body. So give our audience a quick 30,000 foot view on you.
Well, I'm the CEO and president of HeartMath Incorporated. I have been involved with the HeartMath mission since inception in 1991, where a number of us got together with renowned stress researcher, Dr. Childrey, the founder, who wanted to research how the heart, brain, nervous system communicate to help people learn how to get in sync with themselves, to connect more with who they really are, but really to have it research-based. How does all this internal process work, and can that understanding of our physiology help us to become better human beings, healthier, wiser? And you know, the ancient sayings, listen to your heart, follow your heart, which are in our modern parlance, they were something all of us were practicing. And I also am a behavioral psychologist. And I learned very quickly in my work with people that it was important for them not just to be stuck on their head, listen to their heart. And so as we began this research back in 1990, we realized that there was quite a bit of breakthrough research on the heart that was happening in the 1990s, which was called the decade of the brain, but it was also the decade of the heart. It was in that decade that neurocardiologists really described the little brain in the heart. Most people don't know that your heart has its own intrinsic nervous system with neurons that can sense, feel, learn, and remember, which helps explain why heart transplant patients sometimes take on the personality characteristics of the donor. But these neurons, this little brain in the heart, is reading, it's sensing how the body feels. and it's communicating that to the brain upstairs. It's independent of our cranial brain. So when we've all been taught, well, the brain controls the heart, that's not totally true. The brain sends signals to the heart to speed up or slow down the heart rate and the autonomic nervous system. But those signals, a lot of them are the heart sending to the brain the information about how the body feels. So there's this two-way communication, two-way traffic going on. And what was really fascinating also in the 1990s is they discovered the heart is a hormonal gland. It secretes serotonin. It secretes hormones that are associated with how we feel, including oxytocin, as much as the brain has, which is the love hormone or the bonding hormone, which helps explain why we feel feelings in the area of our heart. We say, I love you with all my heart. We don't say, I love you with all my brain. Right? And there's reasons for that. It's an energetic heart. It's our connection with, you could say, soul, spirit, or who, our sense of being, our sense of who we are. If you ask children, where are you? Who are you? They all point to their heart. Unless they've been so conditioned to shut off their heart, they point to their head. There's some core sense of being that all the ancient cultures, Egyptian, Greek, Chinese, all pointed to the heart as the seat of intelligence, the seat of wisdom. And yet, modern science in the 1500s, looking at and dissecting the body, so, oh, this heart's just a blood pump. It's sending blood to the brain because they didn't have the equipment to see all this other stuff going on. So that was really exciting to research what was happening in the heart. And these signals the heart sends the brain are signals mostly in terms of how the body feels. And we wanted to see if there's any way we could learn more about these signals. And there's actually 4 ways the heart communicates to the brain, and I'll cover 2 of them today: energetically and this nervous system communication through the vagal nerve. And 90% of the traffic between the heart and the brain through the vagal nerve, which also goes down to the gut, I'll talk about the gut brain too, is afferent, meaning the heart sending 90% of the information this way, north, and the brain is 10%. So it's a total upside down paradigm shift from what we have been taught and what medical science used to say. Now they're all becoming more aware of this, but it hasn't really filtered down to most of us, most of humanity. And it's not just HeartMath that's doing this research. It's major universities and systems that we've partnered with, Stanford Brain Research and all sorts of university centers, because it's so important to human behavior and human health to learn how to connect with our heart, to have more heart-centered living. That gives us more empowerment to be able to affect the traffic between the heart and the brain. The intellect alone can't do it. So I think what's really important to understand is what we did next in our research. We looked at all the forms of biofeedback: galvanic skin response, brain waves, electro EEG, EKG, the electrocardiogram. And somebody said to us, why don't you start looking at the spaces between the heartbeats for information? And we went, okay, how do we do that? And we found out that fetal monitors use something called heart rate variability, or HRV. This was way back in the early 90s. And we actually began to look at hooked ourselves up to heart rate variability monitors to see when we were meditating and feeling love, care, compassion, appreciation, gratitude, all those qualities of heart, what would happen to our HRV? And we were feeling frustrated, angry, anxious, worried, stressed. Could we see a difference? And it was huge. And this is what was published in the American Journal of Cardiology in 1995. Is the first time there had been a link seen between emotional state and the rhythms of the heart. And that started a whole new field of research for a lot of organizations and institutions, and for us be able to train people with techniques and tools to be able to shift your HRV pattern and use technology, heart biofeedback, to see what was going on. And here's what the most important thing is. We found when you're feeling angry, frustrated, stressed, the heart rate variability pattern gets really incoherent, really jagged and jerky. And the more you're upset, the jerkier it is. So it's a direct mirror. And when you're feeling calm, peaceful, loving, courageous, in your heart, that expression, you're feeling appreciative, grateful, the heart rate variability pattern turns into this beautiful sine wave like rolling hills, which indicates that your autonomic nervous system, parasympathetic and sympathetic, are actually in harmony and synchronized. And it reflects how you feel. The more deeply loving you feel, the more you see those smooth heart waves. And after that, we found how the signal from heart to brain changes depending upon this HRV pattern. And when the HRV pattern is a stress wave, jagged, irregular, and incoherent waveform, it signals the brain through the thalamus that synchronizes cortical function and the amygdala that stores emotional memory. It stirs up all old memories of anxiety and stress and what you felt before when that pattern happened. And it is really an important indicator of how trauma gets built in the system. And it shuts down your higher cortical functions, so you will go into survival mode, fight, flight, fright. You can't think as clearly. So we have brain fog. And this is happening everywhere right now with the stress epidemic, because you can actually see it in the HRV pattern. So when we teach people how to shift into these smooth waveforms, the sine wave in physics is called a coherent waveform. Coherence, one peak, one frequency. And that is the signature, I call it the signature of love or care or compassion, because you see it in the HRV pattern. And when we teach you how to change your heart rhythm, it changes your feelings and your perception. When we help you through HeartMath tools, synchronize your breathing with something you appreciate, your pet, doesn't matter. Somebody that's easy for you to appreciate, and you get into the synchronized mode, you can experience after a couple of minutes of shift in perception. So
Is that
it's
why I'm always so happy when the Amazon delivery guy shows up? I think he's been my salvation in the last year.
yeah, well, whatever makes you feel uplifted. Sorry, I've gone on and on and on. I'm sure you have questions.
No,
This is great.
Yeah, and I think one thing that before we kind of get more into the techniques that you guys do, we've heard so much about HRV. I think in the last couple of years, this has really become one of the emerging data points that people are really excited to dive into. But there seems to be a little bit of ambiguity on the subject of HRV. What really is it? And even to the extent that, I've spoken to cardiologists and now they're recognizing the benefit, but even they're kind of a little, like, what is it? So I'd love if you would, Deborah, kind of dive into really what is HRV? How do we accurately track it? And I think there's even some confusion on when is the best time to track it, because some people are saying you have to do it when you're asleep. Some people are saying, you do it in times of meditation. So let's kind of do a deep dive into HRV.
Sure. Well, I understand why there's confusion, because so much of HRV research has been related to the amount of HRV. And what our discovery was the pattern of HRV. Now, let me explain the difference. So heart rate variability is the beat to beat to beat changes in heart rate. And when you measure your heart rate and you say, oh, it's 65 beats per minute, that's an average. Your heart rate is actually changing with each beat. So one beat might be 60 beats, 180, 150, 170. It's amazing. If I'd known, I would have brought up a graph to show you, but these beat to beat to beat to beat changes form a pattern over time. So if you plot the pattern, when you're stressed, it's really higgledy-piggledy. It's all over the place. Even if it averages out at 65 beats per minute, when you're feeling loving and caring and appreciative and you have that smooth rolling hills, it's still measuring the beat to beat to beat variations, but they're going up and then down. And heart rate's going up and down in a smooth ordered rhythm. That's why it's called the heart rhythm. And you still may have 65 beats per minute as your heart rate. So you see, heart rate and heart rate variability are two totally different things. That's the first thing to understand. Now, I talked about pattern. So pattern means over time. So what does this up and down look like over a minute or 3 minutes? And that's where you can see the emotional state. And it's real quick. If you shift from, like kids do this all the time, frustration, he stole my toy, and crying, and the next minute they're elated because they just got a toy from Amazon, right? And so they're up. You'll see that shift in the HRV right away. It's like fascinating to watch. Well, you go from frustration to peace or to joy. Your emotional state is in the pattern. Now, the amount of HRV is the distance between the peak and the trough. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're little, you have the most natural variability, meaning it goes up and down, up and down. And as you get older, there's an age-related decline. So when you're really old, it might just be like that. The pattern will be the same. It's how much distance between the peak and the trough. Now, that's what most HRD devices are measuring these days, because it indicates fitness levels, it indicates prediction of disease. In fact, your amount of HRV, if it's not as variable as it should be for your age, is a predictor of a lot of health problems, including all-cause mortality. It's that important of a measure. It's also a measure of recovery, how quickly you recover. And that's why a lot of athletes use it to measure recovery, and it's used in training. And that's why at sleep, you can see what it is when you're not moving around. And you can see the pattern, how much the volume, the amount changes, and there's information in that. So that's what you're going to see most uses of HRV for these days. Our focus is on coherence, on helping people get it synchronized, because it is a measure of the balance of the autonomic nervous system, which is responsible for 90% of your body's involuntary functions. Immune system, hormonal system, digestion, quality of sleep is all controlled by the autonomic nervous system, which is related to the heart rate variability. So I hope I made that simple enough.
It did. And I think one follow-up I have with that is I've heard that HRV is really I don't want to say a battle, but it's your sympathetic, parasympathetic kind of fighting for control over the heart, or kind of feeding signals to the heart, let's say, whether you should be in fight or flight. And it's that variability, or those kind of two elements of the autonomic nervous system, that define what those spaces in between the heartbeats can be. Is that accurate?
Yeah, well, that's just what I was describing. Again, when you're stressed or frustrated, though, there's going to be a lot of it's not variability, and that's the up and down, right? But disorder in how the autonomic nervous system is functioning. And that's the stress response. That's the frustration, anger. That's the incoherent waveform that I was describing, the jagged, irregular. And it's like driving your car with one foot on the brake and one foot on the accelerator. It's a herky-jerky ride and burns a lot of gas, a lot of energy. But that's what we're doing when we're stressed. They're fighting each other, because we're fighting emotionally inside. We're saying, I'm no good. Oh, I need to do this better. Or she's bad. all of that judgment and perception of loss or anger just completely creates this fight between the parasympathetic that wants to relax and everything's cool, and the sympathetic that wants to fight. So that pattern is what the heart sends to the brain that responds according to how it's learned. Let's fight, let's run away, let's freeze. And that is a lot of the mechanism of the stress response. Then the heart signals the brain, and you know what the brain does in that response? It signals the gut. So that's when we feel the gut brain people call it gut feelings. And
I was going to bring that up.
yeah, there is a little brain in the gut, but it's a tertiary response. This is important. The first response that we often aren't aware of is the heart reading all the signals, taking the information from the brain senses and how the body feels, and then sending that to the brain making a decision, thinking, perceiving, reacting, and then telling the body. It goes back to the heart and the gut, back through that vagal nerve. So we have the gut reaction. And this has been researched and well published, not just by HeartMath Institute, but by other institutions. If we can learn to connect with our heart signal, we start to become more the master controller, because this is the master controller, is the heart. And so when we're feeling love or care, or kindness or compassion, and genuinely enjoy, we got that Amazon toy we wanted, right? Are feeling uplifted, and the heart rhythm goes into that. Wow, that's when the two sides of the nervous system are functioning really smoothly, like you're driving your Ferrari, right? Everything is clicking and highly tuned.
My Amazon guy has not delivered a Ferrari yet, but I'm hoping that's in the mail soon.
That's coming. I have a quick question about HRV. So Evan and I have been tracking ours for, I would say, like the past 6 months or so. With seeing really interesting research. So I've been doing my own research to see where, the numbers that I'm seeing on my end, is that normal? What's comparable to other people my age? And I noticed on this chart and this graph that I was looking at, you're right, it consistently goes down. As you get older, your HRV goes down. And I'm curious about, if, let's say you are in your later years and your HRV is down, is there a way to bring it back up to where you were as a child? And if so, what would be the difference in that human? If they were to have an HRV that was much higher, what would we see in them as just a person? Would they be more energetic? I mean, what would we see?
I'll tell you what we've seen. And this is, I feel, really important too. Heart rate variability is really related to emotional flexibility. So the more resilient, the more flexible, adaptable you are as you get older, the less your HRV is going to shrink. But it's not going to ever, even if it's the most adaptable, wonderful, joyful, resilient person, be like it was when you were 3 or 4. You're not going to be able to just sit there and then run up that hill and then run back. That emotional flexibility that young children have, which is reflected in that huge HRV, is largely biological, right? And because they don't have any control over their emotions, they just flip-flop until somebody teaches them self-regulation, if they do. So when we're older, what we've seen, and this is one reason we developed our HRV coherence technology, the M-Wave. It's called the M-Wave is a handheld device. M-Wave 2, the M-Wave Pro is what health professionals use, or people who really want to dig into this. That is a computer-based device that shows your HRV and allows you to make annotations about how you felt, and a lot of information, multi-user. And then there's our handheld inner balance device, which it can be either like this with a wired sensor, or there's a Bluetooth sensor. It plugs into your phone, and there's an app, a free app called the Inner Balance app. And so it's for Bluetooth or for I mean, for Android or iOS tablets or phones. What we have found is when people practice shifting out of stress response into the heart rhythm coherence, after a short while, their baseline coherence level, even without using the technology, increases. They are in more flow states. They're in more adaptable states. They're more emotionally flexible. They're more able to manage judgment, reaction, blame, frustration, and stress. When that happens, guess what happens? The amount of HRV increases. So there's a connection between pattern and amount. The best way in our research that we found is to increase the amount of HRV so it's healthy for your age or better, is to practice heart rhythm coherence techniques. And that's why we've created so many techniques, training programs, certification programs for coaches, life coaches, psychologists, mental health professionals, programs for individuals to learn how to do it for themselves, and HeartMath techniques, a whole skill set, because it's so been correlated with reductions in anxiety, depression, improvements in sleep, reduction in muscle tension, even all the stress-related, stress-induced chronic diseases can be facilitated, reduce blood pressure, improve HbA1c, as you get your autonomic nervous system tuned into more synchronization and harmony, and you get your HRV into more coherence. It's the way the body was designed to be. We weren't designed to be in this continuous stress reaction state that so many of us are. And there's such a causal relationship between that and mental and emotional and physical health.
So two questions. I mean, first a comment. I think about that movie Grumpy Old Men with Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon, and I kind of see that as like that's that minimized, peak and valley of the HRV. Is we get into these set patterns. Those set patterns don't allow for adaptability and flexibility, and subsequently our HRV starts to diminish. Is that kind of accurate?
You got it.
Okay. So then I guess the question is like, are we supposed to live the lives that we're living? When I think about HRV and everything that you've said, I think about our caveman ancestors where, parasympathetic, sympathetic were designed to keep you alive long enough for you to kind of find a safe spot, return to homeostasis, and allow those biological functions to kind of separate out your I need to survive to I need to thrive moments. But in today's society where we've got, a pandemic, we've got social media, we've got FOMO as a clinical diagnosis, are we fundamentally at odds with our ability to improve I would say improve our HRV?
Unless we learn self-regulation skills, we are fundamentally limited. Most of us are not taught in school how to handle anger, frustration, stress. It's vented or repress it. It's the next level of human evolution that we can see from our research is what we call heart intelligence. The heart is an intelligence system. It's bringing us full back around to what the ancient Greeks, Chinese, medicine, all of that is discovered, is that the heart is a central controlling agent. It's not just a blood pump. When we say we have feelings in the area of the heart is what can help us manage emotions and stress. The intellect has not done a good job, or we would already be there. But look at society. Look at what the mind has done. The mind is like a knife. It can be used for good or can be used for destruction. And the heart, we're all really connected in the heart. That's a whole nother area of research we could talk about, which is really fascinating. We all have similar feelings, even if they're shut down. We're the same there, even though we're different in our beliefs and our biases in our mind. This is where we're going to learn to get along, is through that connection. People say it's love, and it is, but sometimes that has to be stepped down into the street. What does that mean in practicality? It means when we start to feel triggered, what do we do besides our compensatory behaviors? What do we do that's different? And that's where the HeartMath techniques, and there's others, but that's where we've really honed in to scientifically research and validate tools we can use in the moment to shift those stress responses. And HeartMath is now in over 1,000 schools in the United States, pre-K through college, pre and post assessments, and it's helped with learning, with ADHD, with kids who are bullied. I mean, there's just a whole list of really cool outcomes as children or adults learn these simple techniques.
Well, and I can imagine after the last year where a vast majority of U.S. kids were distance learning, the kind of trauma that's going to cause, later on in life. I think that there's a clear place for these techniques.
Absolutely.
And to that end, I would love for us to kind of go through maybe a high level of what those techniques really look like. For our audience who might be suffering in the wake of a global pandemic, we've got job losses, we've got, physical losses. Someone might have died from COVID. We've got all of these challenges that the last year and a half have presented with us. How does someone even begin to understand the steps necessary to become more heart-centric, to use that phrase? I kind of think of the heart chakra as something we're talking about here. How does someone even begin to say, okay, I'm my HRV is screwed. How do I get back to a good baseline?
Well, we have, we often say, our founder, Dr. Lisa, that simplicity is crunched complexity.
I like that.
So we try to take all this research and see if we can crunch it into something simple for the ordinary person, whatever their belief system, whatever their political, religious, social beliefs. You don't have to be an intellect. How can we get this to the street, to get this to billions of people, to be able to start self-regulating, not repressing, but managing their emotional reactions, and children or adults? So we have a technique called the quick coherence technique. In addition to the technology where you can use this technique and watch in real time, your heart rhythms shift and people go, wow, I can do that. As you watch it and that feedback, and then we have it gamified. So you get points as you practice, and there's little games that you can visualize, there's experiences, all of this to encourage practice to use this simple technique.
Yeah, and ladies and gentlemen listening, make sure to check the show notes on this particular show, because we do have a deal for you guys on some of the stuff that the HeartMath is offering. So, obviously being able to test this stuff, which is something Jana and I preach, is have diagnostic data to drive your decision making. Don't just use Google or some person on the internet to come up with your information. Let's use the real data. Let's use the stuff the scientists, the smart people out there, came up with. So anyway, make sure to check the show notes. And sorry to interrupt, Debbie, but
that's good. Anyway, I wasn't aware of that. I'm glad. So what happens is, as you get more of this synchronized HRV, it actually sends signals to the higher centers of the brain, which are shut down in the stress response, so you can't think as clearly, but it activates compassion, self-compassion, foresight, intuition, heart's intuitive guidance. So you get clear inner promptings of which way to go. It really helps decision-making. So what we want people to do is start with this baby simple technique, which I can teach you right now. Would you like me to do that?
Yes.
Absolutely.
That'd be great.
All right. So first step is in quick coherence is to shift your focus of attention to the area around your heart. You just bring your energy, your thoughts, your attention, your focus to the center of your chest, the area around your heart. Heart chakra, you understand what that is? Connected to the heart, it's your heart, energetic heart area. And as you keep your focus there, we want you to pretend like your breath is flowing in through that area and out through that area. It's called heart-focused breathing. So just breathe in to maybe a count of 5 or 6 and breathe out to the same count. And we'll do this together for a few breaths. Find an easy rhythm that's comfortable. That's the key. And as you're doing this, if I had you on our inner balance sensor and app, you would start to see your heart rhythm smooth out, your HRV become a lot smoother. Now, as you continue heart-focused breathing, I want you to activate a genuine attitude and feeling of gratitude or appreciation for someone or something in your life. Could be a pet, very easy to appreciate. It could be a garden, a time in nature, a loved one, a spouse, whatever is easy for you to feel grateful for right now, an accomplishment. It's that feeling that counts. So you continue heart-focused breathing, and you're just activating genuine appreciation for grateful feeling. If you can't feel it, the attitude works. And just breathe that attitude and a sense of calm as you do this. Now, note how you feel. Note the shift you felt from when we started to now. And if we had you on our inner balance or M-wave sensor technology, you would see a smoother heart rhythm. And as you practice more and more, it smooths out more until it becomes more of your natural state that's easy to reference and come back to when you need to in the heat of the moment.
How do you feel?
I feel great. I absolutely felt a shift.
And that took less than a minute. Less than a minute. We just have to remember to do it. It's the shift from head to heart. How do you feel?
I feel really good. It's kind of funny. Like, we talk a lot about this on the show, but I wake up every morning and part of my journaling practice is just, the truest expression of gratitude I can come up with. It's beginning my day with that. And it's funny because I know how I feel in that moment while I'm actively practicing gratitude. And then it's funny, like the emails start, the phone calls start, like life gets in the way. And then it seems like it just inherently goes away until that next morning when I actively practice that. And clearly the simple act of finding those high energetic, those high frequency emotional states is so important to our health, but it's just like life just gets in the freaking way sometimes.
Well, here it does. Here's the antidote to that. The heart-focused breathing with the gratitude recall is something you can do in 30 seconds every hour or throughout your day. The reason more and more people are doing this, keeping gratitude journals, doing what you did either in the morning or before bed, is because what it does to the HRV and how it makes them feel. They don't know that, but it's so healthy because of what it does to bring your heart rhythm pattern, your HRV, into coherence. Coherence is the key, because then it synchronizes your heart, brain, nervous system, your body, and you think clearer. Gratitude isn't just a healthy thing for physical health. It's for mental health. It's for clarity. It's activating your intuition. Why wouldn't you put a Post-it note on your computer and say, do quick coherence, at least a couple times a day, mid-morning, right after lunch. Our company, and this is what we teach when we go into corporations too, for culture shift, we start our meetings, every meeting, with a 1 or 2 minute quick coherence together. On Zoom or in person, we do it because the research has also shown our heartbeat that puts out 2.4 watts of power with every beat is transmitting like a radio wave how we feel, our vibes to each other. And when we're feeling stressed and frustrated, that frequency, that HRV pattern shows up in the brain waves of whoever's around you. That's been measured. when we're feeling appreciative, grateful for each other, caring, kind, compassionate, non-judgmental, pick one that creates heart coherence. That is radiated and is picked up by each other's brains, and it creates shorter meeting times, which we all like.
Yay.
Less ego, which we all need, and more intuition and more clarity and more effective outcomes. So I would sincerely suggest and offer you, and even a challenge, do the quick coherence 3-4 times a day. Use the technology to prove to yourself it's working, and not just imagine you're doing it, because people start to do it in the head and you won't shift your HRV. It needs that shift to the heart focused breathing, and the activation from here, that sincere feeling. And then you see the results.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I can only imagine what that does to communities or families. I mean, if everyone practices that going into a meeting, or just, being around others or whatever, what can that do for us as a society? And I think that's very powerful.
Exactly. And, we're still human. We have conflicts, we have disagreements, we get triggered in meetings, but we all know what to do and we support each other. Let's get back in the heart. Anybody in our company, if they're in a meeting that gets wonky, can call a quick coherence, and we all stop and do the technique. And then it's like resetting, rebooting your computer. And we all need that from time, especially these days with all the things you're talking about, the political polarization, the threats, the pandemic. People really need this. And like for kids, we teach them these tools through HeartMath Institute, thing called shift and shine. It's quick coherence, but you're shifting and you're breathing, and you've mentioned sunshine, warm sunshine in your heart. It gets them able to know what to do when somebody takes their toy rather than hit them, or you're bullied. You can be a master of yourself, because
what ages are you seeing? What's the youngest age that you guys have done this research?
4 years old is the
4.
youngest who've done the research with a head start, and this was published study. These kids were able to learn. They were accelerated once, this is the inner city Head Start, when they went to school above what their peers who were in wealthier families and had more resources to do. People don't understand how important emotional management is to learning and to comprehension, and to, as well as to getting along with each other. We were seeing test scores greatly increase, mathematics, reading, when people and kids at any age learn some of these simple skills of what to do, so they're not draining emotionally and mentally all day long processing, of that, the trauma.
Yeah, and like I said, not to be redundant, I think that this year has caused so much of that. And I have a 7-year-old daughter, and I see that in her. COVID wasn't the trauma. Distance learning was the trauma.
Yeah, no, I understand. That's what we're finding too. I encourage you to try some of the HeartMath kids stuff with her. Games we have, the program called the Heart Smarts Adventure. Give her some tools that can really be helpful. You can do them together. Yeah, I mean, you can see I'm passionate about it just because you're saying they work. It works for me. I need to use them. We all do it at different times. But it's understanding there's a power and intelligence in the heart that's been hidden in the open, but not really developed.
Well, obviously we're a thinking society. And so, it's easy for us to quantify brain waves, and it's easy for us to quantify the things that science up until recently has been able to prove. But I think time and time again, especially over the last 20 to 30 years, we've proven that science is still kind of behind the 8 ball when it comes to understanding the human psyche and how all of that works. And I love what you talk about in kind of meetings. It just reminds me that there's an energetic amplification that takes place, both positive and negative. We know that when Eeyore walks into a meeting and he brings the energy down,
right,
and everybody's, agitated, versus, when that hyper positive, office cheerleader walks in the room and kind of brings everybody up.
Right.
And so we know that this stuff exists. Now we've got the science to quantify it, and that's so cool.
It's
Yeah,
contagious.
we
both
can
ways.
measure heart waves now, not just brain waves. And we need a heart revolution. We need people to know that that's what we all want. We all yearn for that love and acceptance. We all yearn, but it does take doing something, like self-managing a little bit. We call, science calls it self-regulation. It's kind of a cold term. Coherence is kind of a cold term, but it's describing what happens mentally, emotionally, physically, and it can, within 6 weeks, we do thousands of pre and post assessments over the years. We see incredible improvements in sleep, 30% improvement in sleep. It's rebooting your physiology, rebooting your mental and emotional system. And everybody needs that from time to time, but they don't know that the heart is the key, and we have to interact with it, and it's the key. So we created the HeartMath experience right before COVID, last March, shut everything down. We released a program that we developed. You can be watched as a 90-minute course, and it was featured at the Illuminate Film Festival as the first genre of an interactive film, or as 9-10-minute segments. And each one has a technique, because there's a whole HeartMath skill set for decision making, how you use that simple, quick coherence technique for attitude breathing, for creating, there's a whole skill set of HeartMath techniques called building personal resilience. And what we did was we decided, instead of selling it, we'd give it away, because people needed so much help. We decided to cut our health professional HeartMath clinical certification programs in half, the cost for doctors and mental health professionals, because they couldn't see patients in the office anymore. They had to figure out how to do telemedicine. And that was our way of doing that. We talked, the schools weren't functioning, so we started giving away this Heart Smarts Adventure program that I'm suggesting you get, with a goal to give away 100,000 to parents and teachers. And that was one of the most rewarding times for me, is to see how much it helped people. And the HeartMath experience is still available for free. I'm sure you guys have a link so people can get that. And of course, the technology we can't afford to give away for free, but people can get that too.
That's okay, ladies and gentlemen. You don't get something for nothing, and you either pay for your health now or you pay for your disease later, and that's that's true in autoimmune disease, that's true in cognitive decline, that's true in cardiovascular disease, but obviously that's also true in how we treat our hearts and what that HRV pattern looks like as we try to evolve into a healthier human being so that we can do more good in the world, which is hopefully why you're listening to us. So Deborah, did you guys actually get to the 100,000 that you were able to give away?
Yeah, we did. Absolutely.
Nice. Well, we're going to challenge, if there's a challenge, we'd like to challenge our audience to increase that number significantly. And more than that, share that with all of your friends and family, because it sounds like energetic amplification is something that you guys are passionate about. And as if we can get more and more people into this type of state, that's how we change the world.
Absolutely. And we're actually researching energetic amplification. And HeartMath Institute's Global Coherence Initiative is researching social coherence, which is what we're talking about, how we amplify or how we bring up or take down each other's energies. Because until we learn how to all get along, there's not going to be a whole lot of progress in this planet.
No.
And, and then global coherence, some exciting research that's done with partners at the University in Lithuania. We have sensors throughout the world, magnetic field detectors, to see how the Earth's ionosphere and the Earth's geomagnetic field may be affecting our HRV, because it's known that it has the strongest effect on HRV in terms of stroke and hospital admissions and all that when there's perturbations in the field at a certain frequency. But what's not known is that there's also positive effect that can happen as the Earth's fields modulate. And the interconnectivity research between our emotional states, our HRV pattern, and the Earth's ionosphere and resonances at the core of the earth overlap. So we're measuring kind of what's happening in the brain waves of the earth, the ionosphere, which overlap human brain rhythms, alpha rhythms, etc. And the core of the earth's magnetic emanations that overlap our cardiovascular rhythms, the earth's heart and mind or brain. And what we're sensing is this energetic, what are we feeding the field? When we put out anger and frustration, all the stress waves going on, it perturbates the field. No wonder we're having all sorts of exacerbations in weather. We can't prove that yet, but it looks like there's an impact. And at the same time, when we have these collective meditations or these group events where people are putting out love or compassion or care or kindness to try to help others, there appears to be a biofeedback with the Earth's fields, a coupling. And that's just such an exciting area of research. The first studies of that showing how the Earth's fields can amplify our coherent heart rhythms was published just last month. And before, in last year, Nature magazine, I mean, the prestigious Nature Scientific Review published some of our research.
That's
wow.
fascinating.
That's awesome.
Now, that's something that we're definitely going to have to talk more about. And look, I mean, it's obvious that we can have a direct and clear impact on our planet. You know, we were talking before we started the podcast about just the temperature in Seattle this coming weekend, where people who've never had to have air conditioning are trying to figure out how they're going to stay alive.
Yeah.
So if we can have a clear and direct impact on the environment, what's to say that we cannot have a clear and direct impact on the emotional state of a planet? And it's just energy, right? We've known this for a long time. We talk about this all the time, is that we are nothing but energy. So, you know, we put out good, we get good, we put out bad, we get bad. So this might be the one thing that we can do to get Instagram shut down. After, of course, you watch the teaser for this particular podcast. It looks like we're running about out of time. I would love for you to kind of give our audience just some direction on where they can go outside of the links that are going to be in the show. What is your real call to action? When you go to your website, there is something that you guys are pushing towards, and it's more global than it is. I think that people realize, and we kind of talk about this in the show, but what is your future? What is HeartMath's future? What do you guys really want? And what is the legacy that you're kind of hoping to leave the world with all of this amazing work you're doing?
Oh, big question.
It's the magic wand question.
Yeah. Well, our mission is to facilitate people getting their mental, emotional, physical systems into coherent alignment, to connect more with their larger self, higher self, source, whatever you want to call it, because that is where we've seen is the key. Coherence occurs at all levels in nature, from quantum coherence to the macro level. And it is it's meant for us to get our systems, mental, emotional, physical, into that coherent alignment. That connects us with who we truly are, and we become more of our better selves. So through having science validate this and develop techniques to cut through the morass that are simple enough for billions to use, our mission is to get this to as many people as possible and have them use it to be able to connect more with their heart's intuitive guidance, which is their heart's intelligence, which is the next level, as we see it, of human consciousness unfoldment. And it's bringing the heart and intellect and mind together in a coherent alignment to open up to a higher mind. As Einstein said, no problem can be solved at the same level of consciousness that created it. So we have to raise consciousness. And the heart is a key driver in it. So we want to provide this to children, change how we look at things. So we look more through the eyes of the heart, which is not something soft and mushy or just for church. It's really the power that drives the human body and human consciousness. So we have the HeartMath Institute that does the research, a 501c3 nonprofit that is supported by donations and grants. People can contribute to that. We have HeartMath.com, which is how we get this to the world through our technology, through our training programs, through content. And we want to create more and more content for people. And we want people to develop their social coherence and really understand the global coherence. So come to HeartMath.com and download the free HeartMath experience. That's really where I'd like people to start. Watch that in 90 minutes or in segments. Get the technology, the AdHeart Facilitator, Inner Balance, or M-Wave technology, and prove it for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Become your own self-scientist. Use these techniques. See what they do for you. Share them with your family and friends and workplace. And let's add heart. That's our logo. Let's create a heart-based living momentum on the planet.
Oh, I love that.
Any other questions?
No, this is phenomenal. Thank you, Deborah.
You're very welcome. I'm always glad to facilitate, and let me know if I can help you more, do more. We can do a whole
I think there's a lot more that we need to explore. And obviously, as the science continues to emerge and support what we've probably all felt for a long time, we get to bring that science to the people. And in that, ladies and gentlemen, as Deborah said, head on over to heartmath.com. Take a look at all of the resources that they have there. We highly encourage you to watch the video. A Journey of 1,000 Miles begins with a single step, or in this case, a single video. And in that information, you can obviously find what we've been talking about for a long time, what HeartMath has been talking about for a long time, and what obviously scientists have known about, but is now just kind of getting out to the masses, is that we are a heart-centered people. And the more that we focus on that, the more that we can change the world. Complete Human's mission is to educate and inspire healthier people for a healthier planet. And with organizations like HeartMath, we have every belief that we can make that happen. So Deborah, again, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you both. Thank you for all you're doing too. We all have to follow our hearts and do this together. So thank you.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another edition of the Complete Human Podcast with your host,
Jana Breslin.
and Evan DeMarco. We will see you next week.
Bye, everyone.